Hey, what's good with it, y'all? It's Logan, and I want to welcome y'all back. Shout out my brother Elijah. Get us started, man.
Yeah. How you guys doing? My name's Elijah. I'm excited to be back. This is episode 2. I know, just like Logan is, we're really excited to come back and bring you guys some more content. This week, we're doing some album reviews, of course, but we're mainly focusing on, we have a little fun draft that we have planned out for you guys. And we kind of want to see what you guys think of our teams that we draft. And then we also have a little kind of like a talk about artist growth. I think that's going to be really interesting. I think you guys will really enjoy that one. So stay tuned. Let us know how it is. And definitely, if you like it, please comment, give us feedback, give us everything. But to start it off, we'll go with our standard album review. We're going to start off with Earl Sweatshirt. He dropped the album this Friday. And I'm going to let Logan take off on that one.
Yes, sir. So before I get into this album review, I want to go back to what Elijah just said. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe if you're listening on YouTube, rate it on Spotify, Apple Music, download the episode, share it with your friends, y'all. We really appreciate all the viewership we've been getting so far. Just keep it up, man. We're trying to get as big as we can. All right. So getting into this Earl Sweatshirt. He dropped an album with The Alchemist this past weekend called Voir dire. It is a French term. It's a French legal term meaning to tell the truth. And this album clocks in at 11 tracks, 27 minutes. A little bit about Earl's background. For one, I had no idea Earl was only 29 years old. That's crazy to me because I know I've been listening to him for around a decade, if not longer now. I believe his album Doors came out back in 2013, and that wasn't even his first project. He had the Earl project before that. But I really enjoyed him back then. I enjoyed Doris, although it wasn't as good as what people thought it would be. And then he just kept going up from there. Back in 2018, he released probably his most critically acclaimed album, some rap songs. I personally wasn't as big of a fan of that as a lot of people. I thought that the topics he was talking about, of course, going through, I believe it was his dad's death and the emotions that he was going through at that time, especially the way that he's able to say it in just more ways than I don't know what most people could probably articulate it. He definitely got you into those feelings in a unique way. My problems with it, and same with his follow-up project to That Feet of Clay, were the beat selection. It wasn't always the cleanest, and I understand that, especially on SRS, where he's trying to explain his feelings, but let's just say I wasn't the biggest fan of that. Now, follow that up with his most previous project, Sick, and then going into this one again, having The Alchemist's production. He definitely has taken a step up on his beat selection. So that's where I want to start off with this one. Like I said, The Alchemist producing, that means you're going to get some good beats. The Alchemist has worked with a lot of artists, from Freddie Gibbs to the Griselda Boys. I actually just listened to an album earlier from him today that I had missed earlier this year, him and Domo Genesis. So Earl fits very much into that type of artist that should be working with The Alchemist. Some of those more glamorous coke rap type beats, and just some of those more raw sounding beats while still sounding completely finished and polished. That's the difference between what Earl was doing and what he did now on this project. So like I said, their styles just fit very well together, and I do enjoy that. Now getting into the actual project, you only got one lead single, which was Century, featuring Mike, which can be found anywhere, Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube, whatever. I'll get to why that's an important note later. Overall, like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of Earl in terms of, I'm not going to have a single track that I take away oh, this was my favorite track. He's more of you listen to the entire project and you get an entire feel for it. I think Earl fans are going to love this album. In fact, I've seen it on hip-hop Twitter already. They are very much enjoying this album. This will probably be in their top 10, top 15 of the year.
Shout out hip-hop Twitter.
That's right. Shout out hip-hop Twitter. I'm not as big of an Earl fan as some of those people. I do think it's a really good project. I'm not going to be able to say it's going to be in my top 10, top 15, maybe top 20, top 25, depending on where it ends up for me by the end of the year. But again, like I said, I think his fans will eat it up. I do not think that this will be the album that convinces you to listen to Earl if you don't already like him. If your only qualm with him was his beat selection, then this may sway you. But apart from that, if that wasn't your only issue with him, if your issue with him was that he's too low energy, which he can be at times, that's the type of artist he is. You know, you just got to give it up at this point. He's not going to change that. Overall, the negatives, again, I mean, you can make the negatives of he's not that type of artist, you know, he doesn't have the biggest energy or anything like that. I'm not going to take that as a negative because he's over a decade into his career. He is what he is. He's a lyricist. He's very similar to like an MF Doom and Open Mike Eagle, who we will talk about later. He's very similar to artists like that, so that's the type of music you're getting. My negative is how this album was released. It's not on Spotify. It's not on Apple Music. It's not on any of the major streaming sites, which is all fine if they want to release it on their own site. Cool. Empowerment to the artist. They get a bulk of the money, whatever. And the sign-up process for the website that it was on wasn't that difficult. Really, all you have to do is Google the album. It'll take you to Earl's website, and then it'll take you to the tree showing where you can stream the single, and it'll take you to the website. You sign up for the website with an email. You get to listening. Two issues with the website, though. One, it was very much embedded with NFTs, which I don't know anyone that actually supports NFTs at this point. I think we all think they're pretty stupid. And two, whenever you click the play button for the overall album, so it'll have a layout where it has the album cover art, and you click a play button under that, starts you on the first track. Mm-hmm. When you click that button, it shuffles the songs. That makes no sense to me. Now, it does have the track list complete. Yeah, it does have the track list completely in order under that. So if you want to scroll and individually click the play button on each song after the last song finishes, you can listen in order. But it's kind of annoying to do that. It's too much of an active listening process to me. That being my only major negative, the album's good. It's nothing special, but that did detract from it a little bit just in terms of my listening experience. Mm-hmm. That's all I got on that one. Yeah.
So I'll be upfront. Definitely didn't listen to the album, and based on what Logan has said about how the effort you have to go to take the album, I'm glad I didn't, because I'm not going to talk too much about it because I'm not a big Earl fan either. But I will say, like, I'm not a big fan of artists making their fans go through so many obstacles to listen to their music. I respect, like Logan said, we respect, you know, artists' empowerment and artists wanting to make their money off of their music. I completely respect that. I'm okay with him having the album only on his website. I just wish that he made the experience better and easier for his fans, so that it's less of a hassle for people who want to listen to the album to listen to the album. Mm-hmm. You know, you know, we're not going to pretend like everybody listens to every album. No, we know, you know, some people are just not going to listen to it. But like, think about it. If you were interested at all, even if you're not an Earl fan, if you were interested, because of the way this album was rolled out and how you have to listen to it, it's probably going to make you not want to listen to it unless you are a huge Earl fan. And I feel like as an artist, that's just never a good situation. Even, I mean, you can get away with it if you're Jay-Z, Beyonce, you know, Kendrick. If you're that type of level, you could get away with that because people are going to take that effort to listen to you. But if you're somebody like, and I'm not trying to insult Earl Sweatshirt here, but like, he's not on that level, so that's not the type of vibes we're looking for, honestly.
Exactly.
To be nice. But you know, I want to move on to the album I did listen to. It's Burna Boy's album. So it's called I Told Them. And I'll say this. So Burna Boy, just give you some background. If you didn't know, Burna Boy is from Nigeria. He's a Nigerian singer. So you can assume that it's Afrobeats music, and it is. He's been big for, I want to say, the last like 7-8 years now. So he's pretty well established to his career. You know, when you think of Afrobeats, especially from, I like to say from American side of things, when you think of Afrobeats, artists, you're probably thinking of Wizkid, you're probably thinking of, you know, Tim's right now because she's really popular, and then Burna Boy's probably right behind, you know. So he's one of the bigger Afrobeats artists around. And just saying, like I said last episode, I really like Afrobeats. I like Caribbean music. Listen to it. Listen to Afrobeats in general. going to this album specifically, I don't really. I'm gonna start with the negatives. I didn't really have any negatives actually. It's a short album. In terms of time, it's only 40. It's 47 minutes. 17 songs, 47 minutes. So it's not too long. There's like 2 or 3 songs that are like interludes / like just somebody talking for a minute or so. One of those songs is actually, I don't know if it was like Virgil Abloh's call to Burna Boy, like if it was their last conversation they had or something. But it was pretty cool that it was a song dedicated to just Virgil speaking to Burna Boy. So if you're looking for music, obviously that part may not be the most interesting, but I think it's pretty cool that was on the album in general. But yeah, honestly, I think the only other negative I can think is Afrobeats. And that's not a negative, but if you're not interested in Afrobeats, you're probably not necessarily going to like this album just because it's an Afrobeat album. Like, that's just what it is. But moving on to positives, I have a lot more to say positively about this album. The album is very fun. This is like one of the albums of, like, I'd say if this had dropped in June, this would have been an album of the summer. This would have been on rotation at like parties all the time. This would be the album you would hear people just playing at the beach when they want to listen to Afro beats. This is just a really fun album. It's a very easy listen. Like, I literally put it on my first listen and I didn't even realize, like, I had listened to the whole album when the album ended because it was just so easy to listen to. It just flowed so well. And even though, again, stressing, even though it was Afro beats, it wasn't the same exact single thing each time. Very good splitting up. The album was very well curated. The beat selection was on point. Beats were very on point. And I want to say that 2 of my favorite songs, I think I had 3 songs I put on the thing on my list of favorite songs. 2 of them have great, amazing samples. Standing on Top of the World, which is his lead single, that is, I don't know if it's technically the remix on the album, but the album version has 21 Savage in it. And it's a sample. It samples Brandy's Top of the World. Great sample, great integration in the sample. I'm sure most people have probably heard that one because it's a pretty big single. But that one's sample is amazingly integrated. And then the other song I really like is called City Boys, which, kind of funny name. But I really like that one because it sampled Jeremiah's Birthday Sex. And it's also a great integration of that sample as well. So I really enjoyed how he curated this album. I think he did a great job with picking the features. Like, you got features from J. Cole, you got features from RZA, 2 separate features from RZA. You got features from Dave, from GZA, 21 Savage. So you got some big names on there, and they're all really good names. And I just really think my takeaway from this album, very, very fun album. If you are interested in getting to Afrobeats, this is a great album to get into Afrobeats with because you can pick up any of the songs, probably enjoy any of the songs, and really get an understanding of, like, the fun that it can be. Aside from that, I think that's really all I have to say about that album. What do you think, Logan? I know you kind of listened to some of it, so.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of like you on the last album. I listened to the album for the most part. I kind of skimmed some tracks. Afro beats and reggae type music is not my cup of tea in terms of just, I can enjoy it, but I don't get much out of it for myself.
Okay.
I enjoyed what I heard for the most part. Like I said, not many takeaways from it. I enjoyed the feature list from GZA and having RZA on there as well, to Wu-Tang alumni. J. Cole was cool to see on there. Yeah, a couple good features. Definitely some summer songs for sure. Like I said, not as much to take away. This is more the music that you enjoy compared to what I enjoy. So I'm glad that you were able to get more out of it than I was.
And, I do want to say, just talking to the audience here, this is, we're going to talk about other music other than just hip hop all the time. So it's nice to have a little switch up. I'm glad that we got this one. And this is not an album that I would say you should put it on your ranking list and try to rank it against other albums. This is an album I say just put it on to enjoy it. Is that type of album. It's a great album to enjoy. It's not an album that you should try to compare to, like, this, that, whatever. Just enjoy the album, enjoy the vibes. I'd say find a song. I'm sure there's a song or two off that album that everybody can probably enjoy. So enjoy the song, enjoy the vibes, I should say. And again, I think that if you are trying to get into Afrobeats, I just want to reiterate this point. If you're trying to get into Afrobeats, or you want to find a way to kind of like expand your taste a little bit, play this album. Play this album, see if you like it. If you like it, then you'll get to enjoy some more Afrobeats, And if you don't like it, respect, understand that. But reggae is a very great genre. I think that everybody should at least try it one time, listen to it, and see how you feel about it.
Right, so good review, man. Good review. Maybe I'll find time and be more in the mood to listen to it later. I feel like that's definitely an album that you need to be in a certain mood to listen to. You can't just go into it on a rainy day and.
Yeah, no, it's
got to be more
it's a party album.
Sunny. You're enjoying yourself. Yeah,
exactly. It's a party album for sure.
Yes, sir. So going on a completely different side of that spectrum, I'm going to talk about this new Open Mike Eagle project called Another Triumph of Ghetto Engineering. It clocks in 9 tracks, 25 minutes, and Open Mike Eagle is someone that I've checked out for a while now. Again, kind of like Earl Sweatshirt, not the biggest fan of him, although he definitely has had his ups for me. He makes more relaxing music with a deeper meaning, kind of similar to Earl, MF Doom, ASAP Rock, in the way that he writes. He's going to have a higher unique word count for those of you that actually care about stuff like that. I do think that's something that's cool. Not necessarily important to making good music, but it is a side of hip-hop that a lot of people enjoy. I have a few artists on that side that I personally enjoy myself. Again, he kind of fits into that weird, nerdy category of hip-hop. Just without all the not on the nerdy side of hip-hop like the Wu-Tang artists are, they're more on the nerdy, fun, more energetic side, where he is more on the relaxing side. Now, I'll say one thing: if you're just getting into his music, just like Earl, it can be a little bit harder to decipher. Sometimes the messages aren't extremely clear. Sometimes you have to read the lyrics to figure out what the heck he's talking about. Other times he just has fun and isn't really saying anything. But just because of the type of artist he is, you think that he's actually being quite profound.
It's my favorite.
Like I said, he's similar. Yeah, right. Like I said, he's similar to a lot of artists like Quelly Chris, A$AP Rock, Ka, if you've heard of him, but he's definitely more energetic than Ka. They're just crazy to say. Like I said, you would probably enjoy him if you enjoy MF Doom, although, again, nowhere near that level. He got some acclaim for his project, Brick Body Kids Still Dream. That was probably my favorite project by him. He has not been able to reach that level again, and I'll say even continuing through this album, he still hasn't reached that level again. But there are plenty of positives to go back to this one and amongst the other ones. For one, this album is a really good length. Again, 9 tracks, 25 minutes. Overall, I have no complaints about the listening experience because it was just short enough that you don't, like, if it was longer, you might start to get bored with it.
Okay.
He's not someone that makes crazy zany music. It's all pretty the same general listening experience all throughout. So when it is shorter like this, you don't get tired of it. It's kind of just easy. One thing that I enjoyed were a couple of the track titles. 2 in specific that I wrote down: a new rap festival called Falling Loud, and the grand prize on The Bozo Show. Know why? Those stood out to me as funny track titles, and again, that kind of fits into the type of person and the type of artist that he is. Getting on to how the actual music sounds, WFLD 32 was the lead single, a song that I had not heard prior. Definitely has one of the best beat choices. Again, he can sometimes fall into that issue that Earl does. Less on the rougher side of the beats, more on just the less inspired choices. But again, this having one of the better beat choices, I do think that this was a good lead single to kind of give you an idea of what you were in for this project, while also sounding good and enjoyable. I do think as a whole, this is one of his least focused projects, again, where more of his stuff has more of an overarching theme. Maybe upon some more listens, if I find the time to go back to this one, I'll notice a theme running throughout. Again, I'm not going to act like I'm the smartest person, y'all should go to Anthony Fantano for that. That is not me. Not acting like I'm going through this entire project and I'm going to figure out every little meaning that he has. I did read the lyrics alongside it, but right. I don't think that this being less focused is necessarily a bad thing. There are still plenty of bars that come off as weird, funny, and smart. Plenty of lyricism and imagery. And a couple good features as well. I really enjoyed hearing Blue on The Wire Season 3, Episode 1. I'm a huge Blue fan, so these two working together was cool, and it does kind of work. Blue being a little bit of a similar vibe, but a little bit more energetic and less imaginative in his music, I'll say, just in the way that he phrases his things. Last thing I want to say about this project before I wrap it up, Young Z's line on BET's Rap City, I got fans like R. Kelly, please pee on me. That's it.
Okay. So, hopefully we don't get canceled for that one. But that's a very interesting line.
Yeah.
So,
like I said, just some stuff will make you laugh out loud listening to artists like this, man.
So I guess what I'll ask you, since I didn't listen to this album either, I'll ask you, what would you say to someone who is interested in listening to his music? Would you suggest him to somebody basically who's looking for somebody, I guess, of his style, Because there's a lot of artists that are kind of like in that type of vein that you're describing, but like would he? Like, based on this album, would he be somebody that you would suggest to somebody to start off with, or would he be more? Yeah.
Let's paint a scenario. I'm imagining a friend says, "Hey, I'm a big MF Doom fan. I know you listen to a lot of rap. What would you recommend?" I would probably start with the Earl Sweatshirts of the world. But I would definitely... Open Mike Eagle would be one of the first people I'd recommend. I'd recommend him over Quelly Chris or Ka, for example, like I mentioned earlier. Those are lesser-known artists. Still good artists, just lesser known.
Right.
Ka being a lot more profound and using more imagery in his music, but not being as fun of a listening experience, in my opinion.
Gotcha.
So, yes, I would recommend him, but he wouldn't be like my first. That would obviously be Earl.
Gotcha.
Wrapping that one up, though, I got a couple more that I want to talk about here. These are albums that are just more in my wheelhouse. Elijah, you can throw out questions if you so please. I'll start first with Afro, which is A-R-A-F-R-O. With his project Aphrodisiac, clocking in at 5 songs, 13 minutes, dropped today, the day that we're recording this, Monday, the 28th of August. Just a little bit about Afro. He is an artist that was discovered by R.A. the Rugged Man during his 2013 competition for his song Definition of a Rap Flow. He let people rap over the instrumental of that and picked a winner based on who dropped the best verse. And if you go back and listen to Afro's verse on that, you would think this kid had the biggest future in hip-hop. He's only 25 years old now, and like I said, this happened 9-10 years ago. He was 15 or 16 dropping that verse. Amazing verse. One, he sounded like a grown man just with his voice. I mean, like, a voice the depth of, like, Biggie or someone like that, okay? He still sounds like that. Crazy flow, could speed it up, could slow it down, could go old school, could go bar for bar with someone like Twista, it felt like, in terms of the speed that he reached on that song.
Okay.
Commits to the next decade. He has still not dropped an album. Now, this is not an album, this is a short EP. So, I don't understand that move, but by all means, he is his own artist, he can do what he pleases. I'm not going to break down each song on this. I'll just say, if you've heard him, you know what you're in for. If not, take what I just said. Do you like that kind of music? It's 13 minutes long. Go listen to it. Good flows, good lyricism, funky beats, but nothing groundbreaking. quick and easy listening experience. And again, it's so short that you might as well listen to it if it's the type of music you enjoy.
Okay. So, I just thought of a good question. So,
yeah.
You said that he's been in the game basically since he was like 16.
Yep.
So, he hasn't dropped an album. I'm assuming he's been dropping like little EPs just like this one ever since then.
The longest thing he's dropped was about 30 minutes long, I believe it was, and it was called Afro Polo, which he dropped with Marco Polo, the producer. It was pretty solid, and then he's dropped more recently, within the past year, 2-3 years, he's dropped some from the Vault projects about this same length. Yeah, that's pretty much all he's done. Some features. He was featured on R.A. the Rugged Man's last project, which came out in 2020. But overall, as a solo artist, he has not done much, unless he's been dropping stuff on his own website, and I haven't heard about it. That's possible. I do follow him on Twitter, so I think I would have heard about it. But again, it's not like he's the biggest artist, because he was discovered in R.A. the Rugged Man's competition, which not many people know who R.A. the Rugged Man is, let alone some teenager that he discovered 10 years ago. You know, he's not a teenager anymore, but he was then.
Fair enough. Yeah, so, I mean, that really answered the question I was going with. So, like, you know, just to kind of summarize it, from what I'm hearing, at least, he's the type of artist that, like I said, if you like that type of music, listen to him, be great. But he's probably the type of artist that, like, you know, it's not the most important thing that you go and listen to his music. You know?
Yeah. I would recommend him way more highly if he was still a teenager, because at that point I thought, oh, this kid's got a great future. He's going to blow up. And he might not blow up, but he'll make great music. He doesn't make that much music.
So you think he's and it's funny because we're actually going to talk about this later, as I mentioned, but you think he's kind of, I don't want to say plateaued, because to me sounds like he's just not really releasing music, so it's not really much of a way to, like, you know, kind of.
I feel like he has the potential. He's just not going out there and putting it on wax.
Okay, fair. I can respect that.
Yeah. Now for the last review I've got, this one's just a fun one for me. This is Mike Ben Here, dropping Money on the Floor. 12 songs, 30 minutes. Mike Ben Here is Mike from the Through the Wire podcast. Again, we mentioned them in the first episode. That is Kenny Beecham, KOT4Q, Pierre, D Mills, and Mike, the artist here, on their House of Highlights hosted basketball podcast. He just makes music for fun. I think it is somewhat of a passion for him, but obviously his day job is talking about basketball.
Great day job.
This is just a project. Right. This was just a project that I wanted to listen to. I really enjoy their podcast. I listen to their episodes, pretty much every single one of them. They drop 2 a week. Highly recommend that podcast. But as for the music, I enjoyed it. I'm not going to act like it's anything groundbreaking. I'm not going into it with that type of critical eye. It's just someone that I see as, you know, cool dude about my age who's dropping music just for fun. I've done that. You know, I dropped some music just for fun. I'm not going to act like I expected my music to be that great. He's probably further ahead than I am because he actually has production on his. But, yeah, so this project I enjoyed. Like I said, it's not his day job. It's more of a hobby slash passion. He's just having fun with it. Does it bring anything relatively new? No. Does it have some of the best lyricism? No. Does it have some of the best beats? No. Is it fun to listen to? Yeah. You know? He's not a... I find a hard time to describe his music. He's not a trap artist or anything like that. He's more like... he's more similar to a trap artist, except that's not the type of beats he raps over. It's just in the sense that he talks more about money, girls, you know, stuff like that. Basketball, obviously, but not as focused on this one, of course. I do really enjoy the features that he brings on this one, with him having Kenny, KOT4Q, on here under the name 13 Eacham. That would be the 13 being the B in Beecham, of course. And then also their friend Pierre as Pee Wee to Plug. I really enjoyed their features just because that's his friends making music with him. You know, they're enjoying it. They're having a good time. They even hopped on Twitch and did a live listen at 10 o'clock when it dropped at midnight. Apart from that, I do enjoy Kenny's verse a lot, just because I enjoy when he has made music. I'm a big Kenny fan. This one was a little bit different from what he would normally do on his own personal music, which he doesn't actually release music. He just does it for fun on YouTube, just as, like, he dropped a video where he wrote and produced a song. He did, like, a MF Doom type beat and then just mixed it a little bit. He did that within an hour. That's more the type of music he does, MF Doom being one of his favorite artists. This one was more braggadocio. But again, this project has plenty of smooth, higher class beats, kind of what you'd hear on like a Benny the Butcher type project, just without that aggressive coke flow, more of the smooth, talking to the girls, bragging about my money type music.
Gotcha.
But yeah, like I said, I'm not looking at this from a critical lens. I just wanted to talk about it. You know, if people know who he is, or if people just want to give it a listen, hey, I'll shout it out for the man. He's a cool dude.
Gotcha. So yeah, I'll just say I've been a big fan of Kenny myself. So I actually want to take the time to listen to this album, just to enjoy it. You know, I'm not gonna look at it critically. He's not kind of like the same thing with Dame. From last week, even though Dame is more of an artist than Mike is, obviously. But like when it's somebody,
Mike's not getting Lil Wayne features,
right? Exactly. Like when someone's main job isn't this, and they're just kind of doing it, like just enjoy the music. If it's good, it's good. If it's not, whatever. But I do want to say thank you, Logan, for talking about those few albums.
Yes, sir.
I want to go into let you guys know. So next week it's looking like we haven't seen any releases so far. Nothing's been announced. We're still on. I will say we're officially on Drake alert. Drake has been teasing an album. Don't know when it's going to drop. He did come out and say,
we all thought it'd be this Friday.
Right. He did come out and clarify that he himself never said anything, which is true. He never said it was going to come out Friday. So he did say it's coming soon. So just keep in mind that, you know, it might be a little slow right now, but Drake can drop any of these next few weeks, and trust me, you don't want to miss that episode. But as far as what we're expecting next week, we're not seeing too much. So I think that we'll have something planned for you guys, but we don't want to spoil anything. But Logan, are you ready to go ahead and do the draft?
Listen, man, I've been ready.
So just so you guys know, we did a coin flip, already decided who's going first. So Logan's gonna go first. We're doing a serpentine draft. So we're doing is 10 rounds, 5 picks total.
5 picks each. Yep. So I'll go, Elijah will go twice, I'll go twice until we reach 5 picks each. And we'll do our best to keep track of that. All right. That being said, our topic, best debut albums of all time.
And then, so what I'm going to do, Logan, just to make this easier for us, I'm going to write down in my notes on my phone our picks.
Perfect.
So we can keep in mind what we have.
That's perfect. All right. Sounds good. So like I said, best debut albums of all time. I'm going first. Elijah, you got 2 straight picks. Are you ready, my man?
Oh, I'm ready.
Oh, you're ready. He sounds like he's ready for a competition. All right. So, being that I have the first pick, I kind of wish I didn't.
I'm glad I didn't get the first pick.
Yeah, I'm going to take an artist that is probably one of my favorite artists of all time over what I think is the best pick, okay? That means I am giving you the 2 straight opportunities to take the best pick. If you let it slip to me, you are going to regret it, because with my number 1 overall pick, I am taking College Dropout by Kanye West.
Okay. You know what? That does not surprise me at all. At all. All right, so just to keep clear, Logan with the first pick to College Dropout by Kanye West. I now have the second pick. So funnily enough, that was on my mind as an option. But for my first pick,
of course,
I'm going to go something that you guys might not expect. I'm going to go the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill.
Okay. I like it.
So let me write that down. And then I have my next pick already queued up. So I'm going to go ahead and write down Miseducation. And then we'll just go ahead and add the third pick being Illmatic.
Yep. Okay. Good. I was hoping that would slip to me. Good pick. Good pick.
Illmatic. Okay. Illmatic by Nas.
Obviously. Great just pick. Yeah. Probably arguably the best debut album of all time. Arguably the best album of all time. Mm-hmm. Great pick. I'm not mad at that at all. So I've only taken 1 pick. You've taken 2 picks. That means I got 2 in a row now, and I am very thrilled about the picks I'm about to make here, I believe. So, with my second overall pick, I am taking Ready to Die by the Notorious B.I.G.
Hey, you know what? I knew I was gonna get that one, but that's a great one.
I'm very thrilled with that one. That is one of my favorite albums of all time. And to follow it up, I'm going to take another one of my favorite albums of all time. Not a single artist debut, but a group's debut. Enter the Wu-Tang, 36 Chambers by Wu-Tang Clan.
Okay. That
Very thrilled with how my draft is turning out through 3 picks.
okay. All right, I gotta come out with a heater. Okay, so
Yes, sir.
kind of
See
tough
what
to
you
follow
got.
Ready to Die and Enter the Woo, but I'm gonna go with something that, in terms of commercial success, one of the best commercial albums ever, especially at the time. I'm going Doggy Style, Snoop Dogg.
Okay. I'm glad you picked that because I'll be honest, I know that's a classic. It's never been my favorite. I wasn't going to pick it.
Fair enough. You know, listen. There's so many great songs on that album, and like,
Yes, there are.
Snoop Dogg is super underrated. I'm gonna just put it that word out there. He's
Oh, yeah.
super underrated for what he's actually done in his career. But we're gonna speak about someone who's not underrated next. I'm taking Reasonable Doubt by Jay-Z.
Yeah. Saw that one coming. Yeah. Great pick. An album that definitely grew over time because that album did not sell like you would think it did.
And it's crazy because, so, a little story about that. You know, if, as Logan said, Reasonable Doubt, and Jay-Z said it multiple times in his music, Reasonable Doubt could be considered a flop at the time it first released. But over time, people have gone back, listened to it, and if you like, that is probably one of the best. Honestly, I think it's one of the best. Obviously, I picked it, but I think it's really one of the best debut albums of all time. Leading up to knowing what his career ended up being, like it started at such a high, and he maintained that high for so long.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Hey, Jay-Z really thought about not releasing music going into that, and then after it released, whenever it didn't do that great, he thought about not doing music after it because he was already rich. You know? He didn't need music. Turns out music needed him, though. All right. So following that up, I get my last 2 picks. I'm still kind of debating on a couple in my mind, but I think I know where I want to go here. With my first pick, my first pick of this round. Let me get The Chronic by Dr. Dre.
Ooh,
Love that album. G-Funk, baby. G-Funk. One of my favorite styles of music of all time. Heck, I've got displayed right above me. You can't see it. Some of the inspiration for this project. Parliament, Mothership Connection. You will hear, if you listen to this album, you will hear where Drake got his beats from. Great album. All right, but just to stop stalling, my next pick and my final pick, kind of on the same tune as The Chronic, I will take Straight Outta Compton, NWA, one of the most timeless projects of all time. People may still be smashing this one in the streets because of the messages that it says and how abrasive it was.
And you know what? I'm kicking myself for allowing you to give that one because I was hoping that you would let that go and I can get that my last pick. I was really hoping.
I was very
close
to taking Southern Playalistic Cadillac Music just because of how much I love Outkast. But I decided to let that one slide because it's not their best album, whereas Straight Outta Compton is obviously NWA's best.
So I guess it falls to me with the last pick.
Last pick?
You know, I'm going to be honest. I love Outkast. Southern Playalistic Cadillac Music, it may not be their best album, but if you compare it to other people's best albums, it's probably better than other people's best albums.
That's true.
You know, I'm picking Southern Playalistic Cadillac Music. as my last pick, and I just want y'all to know that Outkast.
Amen.
If you have not listened to Outkast, some of you guys might be a little young that's listening to us. Listen to Outkast. Go back and listen to some old Outkast. You'll see where a lot of the Atlanta music today that you like was directly because of Outkast. If it wasn't for Outkast, a lot of the Atlanta artists that I know you guys like, they would not be who they are today. Put it that way.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Look at Young Thug, man. That is probably the best duo in rap history, if I had to go so far to say that.
Absolutely. I don't think that's even a question.
That completes our draft. Elijah, why don't you read them back to us? Tell me my team, tell me your team.
All right, so 1 second. All right, so for Logan, we got his first pick was College Dropout by Kanye. His second pick was Ready to Die by Biggie. Third pick was Enter the Wu by Wu-Tang, the Wu-Tang Clan. His fourth pick was The Chronic by Dr. Dre. And then his fifth pick was Straight Outta Compton by NWA.
Okay? I don't even need to hear who you picked. I won.
Listen, that's his draft. So guys, you guys let us know how he did, and then let me know how I did. I'm about to name my picks now. So my first pick was The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill by Lauryn Hill. I picked Illmatic for my second pick by Nas. I picked Doggy Style by Snoop Dogg. That's my third pick. My fourth pick was Reasonable Doubt by Jay-Z. And my last pick was, of course, Southern Playlist Cadillac Music by Outkast. So, like I said, go ahead and let us know how we did. Let us know why I won and why Logan lost that one. But let us know how we did. If you guys enjoyed that, we definitely would love to keep doing that with different topics. You know, any type of topics you guys want to offer us to do, we'd be willing to do as well.
Yes, sir. Now, before we move on to our last bit, I do want to read a couple of the albums that we left out. So we left out Get Rich or Die Trying by 50 Cent. Classic album. Let's see. What have you got that we left out, Elijah? I've also got America's Most Wanted by Ice Cube. That's definitely an album that could have been picked.
Yeah, I mean, it was mainly those. A lot of the other albums that, like, when I talk about debuts, they just didn't stack up. Like, honestly, I think the main one that you said was honestly Get Rich or Die Trying, because I was considering picking that one. I was seriously considering picking that one, but it was hard for me to justify it over the other ones, obviously.
Yeah.
But you know, I think that in terms of ones that didn't get picked, Get Rich or Die Trying, if you haven't heard that, let's do it. It may be hard if you didn't grow up listening to this, but like I grew up listening to this music. So when 50 dropped and this album dropped, it was one of the craziest times, because he basically came up out of nowhere and had an album that just took over the scene, you know. And then I think we really pretty much hit every other album I think that should be considered on this probably. List. Yeah.
Now, I will say for the people listening, if you're asking, where's this album, where's that album, I just want to make the notes. Good Kid, Mad City is not Kendrick's debut album, as many people like to think it is. That was Section 80. Still a great album. Is it one of the best of all time? Not in terms, I wouldn't put it top 10. Good Kid, Mad City absolutely would have been chosen. And then, same as that, the Slim Shady LP was not Eminem's debut. Infinite was. So again, Slim Shady LP probably could have gotten chosen in here. Infinite absolutely was. I enjoy it. It was absolutely not going to get picked. So just want to lay that out. There are probably a couple other examples, but those are the main two that come off the top of my head here.
And just to further prove, hopefully you guys don't feel too bad, I had no idea Infinite was his first album. So I just assumed it was.
Most people have never heard that project.
So, you know, it's not a big deal. But, you know, again, if we left anything out that you feel, please comment. If, you know, watching this on YouTube, please comment underneath. Let us see.
Definitely could have just been an oversight.
Right. And if you guys want to give us your lists, definitely do that. We would love to see your lists and compare it to ours. You know, maybe you got a better list than we do. Probably not, but maybe you do.
Yeah, maybe. All right. That being said, let's get into our main topic. artist growth. How do artists grow? Are all artists on a linear path? Do they take different paths? Linear being directly up for those of you that failed math. Some artists might not take that path. Some artists might take a bell curve. Some artists might go up and down and up and down. And some artists might just go like this and never actually achieve anything. We have 4 main types of artists we're going to talk about. First off being linear. Second off being, it's kind of hard to actually describe. It's kind of a linear and then a plateau. But by that we more mean the talent goes up and then they achieve the top and just stay there. Next being talent goes up, talent goes down, they peaked, and then they valleyed. And then the last one we want to talk about, there are other examples than just these 4, but the last one we want to talk about is all over the place. That could be an artist that started at the bottom, went way up, back down, back up. That could be an artist that started at the top and then went down and then exploded again. And we have a couple examples to talk about those. So, Elijah, let's start off with linear, man.
Okay. All right.
Describe to me what you think a linear artist, how their releases would go.
So, and just to confirm, linear obviously is going up straight. And I look at a linear artist as someone who's, it doesn't necessarily mean their first project's bad, but I look at it as their first project may be their worst project, but they've improved upon each and every project. And improvement doesn't necessarily mean like, lyrics got better. Improvement can be, because somebody can be lyrical in their first album and have the same lyrics but choose better beat selection or curate the album better. I think linear is just more of someone who's just improved upon their career each and every album, and you cannot say that they've had an album where it's just been like, wow, they really regressed from where they were before,
Yeah.
We have a couple of examples of them. We don't want to go too much into detail for each one, but I do want to talk about a couple of them. So our examples are Tyler, the Creator, Travis Scott, A$AP Rocky, Future, and Denzel Curry. One I want to talk about, I want to actually talk about Tyler, the Creator. So
the best example of this, potentially.
Definitely. When Tyler first came out, I listened to him when he first came out. I will never forget when he first came out. I was 14, I think. So it was like 10, almost 12 years ago. I was 14, and I remember me and my dad were listening to it, watching his video. I can't remember what song it was, but it was a song off of Goblin. And
I would never listen to anything off of Goblin with my father.
Yep, see, but all I'm gonna say is this: Tyler has changed so much from where he started out. He started out as kind of like what you describe Earl Sweatshirt as, except a lot more abrasive.
They were very tied together at the beginning of their career.
And if you listen to old Tyler, you know exactly what I mean. Like anybody who's listened to Tyler, you know exactly what I mean. He was super abrasive. All his music was super in your face and aggressive.
He ate cockroaches.
He did some crazy stuff. But as he's progressed throughout his career, each and every album not only has gotten better, but he's mellowed out, but he's also shown that growth. So I want to point out Cherry Bomb. I think if I'm correct, Cherry Bomb was his 3rd album, right? Because was it Wolf, Goblin, then Cherry Bomb, or was it Goblin, Wolf, Cherry Bomb?
Goblin, then Wolf. Yeah.
Goblin, then Wolf. Okay, so Cherry Bomb was his 3rd album, and his 3rd album, that's when I really started to actually enjoy his music. At first, I liked him because he was at the time it wasn't a meme. Like we didn't have memes necessarily at that time in the same way that we do now.
He was just an edgy artist. Yeah.
Right, he was the edgy artist. He was kind of like a fun, ha. But Cherry Bomb really showed off his growth as an artist and what he can do to hold his own as an actual artist. And then Flower Boy came, and that completely changed my opinion of him. Totally. Flower Boy was such a
the first project where he really had a theme going for it.
And so, again, Flower Boy improved upon Cherry Bomb and took him this is a whole different. Cherry Bomb and Flower Boy are 2 totally different albums. But Flower Boy really showed off what he could do. And then Igor came out, and I was like, my God.
the most artistic album probably he'll ever release. I don't see him getting more artistic than that.
Definitely not. And, he's just a great example, I feel, of linear growth because he's been able to not only change himself, not change himself. He's still Tyler the Creator. He's still himself, but he's been able to grow as an artist and change how he presents his music, and it's still to this day sounding great, sounding good. Like I can listen to any album from Cherry Bomb up and feel like I'm really getting something great out of it. Wolf and Goblin, I mean, you got some songs that are still hit today. You got some songs that probably should stay back in, when they came out.
Not songs.
So I think he's like one of the perfect examples of a linear artist. I think another, not as perfect example, but another example would be somebody like Future. And I bring Future up because he's kind of like the opposite of Tyler the Creator in the sense that Future hasn't really changed his sound, or his style, I should say. His style is, he's always been a trap artist. He's still a trap artist. But he's been able to adapt a lot to the new. So it's weird to say this because he probably was one of the starters of emo rap. Emo rap was started by Kanye. Kanye made it big. Drake obviously became Drake because of emo rap. Future was able to take that emo rap and put it into trap and make it sound great. He was the first artist to do that, and I don't really have to say too much about Future. I mean, everybody knows Future. Everybody who probably listens to this has probably heard Future, knows about Future. But his growth has been, it's been linear. It hasn't been the same as Tyler the Creator because he hasn't changed too much, but he continues to get better each and every album. Like I've enjoyed each and every album for the most part that he's released. There was stretch in there where he released, an album that wasn't too great, and then an album that was amazing right afterwards. So it's like, but it's been linear growth. For
sometimes within a week of each other.
Mm-hmm. So, and then I wanted to kind of toss this one to you, Logan, because you had you put Denzel Curry as an option. Yes, sir.
So I kind of wanted you to talk about him. Denzel is one of my favorite artists. Denzel is one of my favorite artists. I love him. He kind of bust onto the scene with Ultimate being his biggest song, that being off of his first more major project. He had Nostalgia 64, I believe is what it was called, came out before that. But that was kind of where he blew up, and then he actually started making, granted that was a good project, he started making more polished projects after that, gradually building until he released Taboo, which I thought back in 2018 was going to be the peak of what he could release. And then for a little while it seemed like it was. Not to say he dipped back down, but he quit taking as much of a focus in crafting albums and he literally freestyled his next 2 or 3 projects. Still good projects, still great lyricism, but they were just freestyle fun projects. Then he comes back last year with Melt My Eyes, See Your Future, and that just shows, again, the man has so much growth. And he came out as an artist who was just hype music, kind of trap, kind of just bang your head into a wall music. He had the ability to go into that metal type side, like whenever he covered Bulls on Parade by Rage Against the Machine. But then he comes out and drops Melt My Eyes, See Your Future, which is a much more polished sounding, smooth sounding album that he literally dropped the deluxe, which was just covers of the same songs with a live jazz band, Cold Blooded Soul jazz band, as doing the backing instrumentals. How many rap artists can you say can do something like that after starting out with a song like Ultimate, which again is one of the biggest pregame, you listen to that before a football game and you watch your coach run straight through a wooden door and break it down, Like, how do you go from that to that? That is growth. Hey man, I'm just saying. Tell me I'm wrong. That's the type of song that is. That's very much Dreams and Nightmares level of hype that you can get out of that song. Yeah, so I think Denzel fits very much on that same mold as a Tyler, as a Future, just in terms of their growth.
Yeah, and I just want to add a little bit into that. I think that it's great to have an artist go from and this is a perfect example of linear growth. An artist go from Ultimate, that type of hype song, to now if you listen to Denzel Curry, it's a lot of his music is chill, it's just sitting back and just chilling and just listening to the lyrics. So it's seeing that growth and it still being good quality is what I love seeing in an artist, especially someone who if you guys are on the up and up, if you watch the 2016 Cypher, XXL Cypher, Denzel Curry at the time probably wasn't even the biggest. He definitely wasn't even the biggest artist that was in that cipher.
No.
And
but he did have the best verse.
He did. But it's crazy because in terms of like where everybody is now, he's probably definitely the best lyricist, and he's had a lot of the best growth out of anybody in that in that whole in that whole cipher basically. But I just want to point that out.
That was one of the best double XL ciphers. Yes,
that like
probably
at the time people were clowning it at the time, but the growth all of them was shown. Insane.
My God. Yeah. All right, so let's move on to this next one, right?
Mm-hmm. I was just about to say, I'm going to let Logan take the lead on this one.
Yes, sir. All right, so
this one is the same.
That's right. So this one, talent stays the same, but the goals change. That's kind of where we're seeing an artist who maybe has that initial linear growth, but then plateaus, not because they're not growing as an artist, but because they kind of reach their peak in terms of quality of music, and now they're just staying up there at the top. These are your GOAT level artists that we're talking about. These are your Kendricks, your Jay-Z's, your Kanye's, and your Wayne's. That's who we're talking about here. So to break that down a little bit further, let's talk about Kendrick, right? He starts out, his first major album release being Section 80. Pretty good. Follows that up in 2012 with Good Kid, Mad City, and you're like, my God, this kid is starting off his career with a classic already. He's so young.
Amazing.
How is he going to follow this up? Because many artists have dropped an album like this and never followed it up with the same quality. Look at like your Nas's. He is a GOAT as well, but he never reached that Illmatic level again, you know? I think he came close on albums like Stillmatic. It was written in God's Son, but he never quite surpassed that. Kendrick said 3 years later, I'm dropping the best album of all time. I didn't say best rap album. I said best album. To Pimp a Butterfly. This man mixed jazz and G-funk and so many other levels of music that influenced his hip-hop and made an album about racism, about breaking free of institutionalization, about the guilt that he felt from escaping Compton, about going back to his roots in Africa. He just made such a layered album. And then you look at that and you say, how is he going to follow that up? Obviously, he hasn't topped it. But then he comes out with Damn, which is an album that has a great theme that you can play forward or backward either way. You can argue with yourself whether you think that's a cool feature or not, or whether he intended that. It still works. You can't deny that it works. And again, this one follows it up. Like Damn is more of it's where a lot of his hits came from. But those hits don't detract from how great of an album it is. And then, again, is he still going to be the same artist after that? That's a great 3-album run. Plenty of artists have had great 3-album runs. What's he coming after next? And then Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. Probably not as good as the past 3, you could argue. I enjoy it very much on the same level as Damn. Obviously, it's not as good as To Pimp a Butterfly. Probably the hardest listen of all of them, just because of how visceral it is. But again, this is showing his growth as an artist, because whether it's the exact same quality or not, it's still a top tier, probably going to go down as a classic album. And it shows, hey, I don't have to send a message to you about politics or about being a better person. On this one, I'm talking about I have flaws. I'm admitting my flaws. And you know what? I don't have to be your savior.
Exactly.
I love that as an artist who literally for the last 3 albums was saying, here's what we need to do. Let's lead the people. And now he's saying, you know what? I need to focus on me. That's artist growth. Again, maybe the music didn't get better. Maybe it was the same level. Maybe it even took a slight decline. But the message and just who he was as a person, while still keeping up a similar level of work, while not taking a huge dip and just being bad, that is impressive to me. Same can go for Jay-Z. Same can go for Kanye. Obviously, Kanye has ups and downs. You know, not every single one of his albums is a classic like a lot of Ye fans would have you believe. Me being a huge Ye fan, I'm saying that. But you can't tell me that a person who dropped The College Dropout, Late Registration, Graduation back-to-back, to back. Then influences the music industry with 808s. Then drops probably his best album 5 albums in. Then has a great collab with Jay-Z. He also has a great collab with Kid Cudi. Not as good. I think a lot of people overrate that, but regardless, still great. Then you still got Yeezus, which is still influencing us to this day. The Life of Pablo is a great album. And then, I mean, I think a lot of people are underrating Donda at this point. I think that was also a really good album. That was another step in a different direction. How does he have over 10 albums? And apart from the first 3 sounding very similar, because that was the point, all the other ones sound so different. Exactly. And are still good to great to classics.
Exactly.
Yeah. And to wrap this one up, I want you to talk about Wayne.
Okay. I'm so glad. So, just want to be clear. I said it last time. Kendrick is one of my favorite rappers of all time. He's probably my favorite rapper of all time. Kanye's up there as well. Lil Wayne is right up there. I grew up listening to Lil Wayne. Lil Wayne has always been like some people you could argue whether he's a GOAT or not. I say he's a GOAT, absolutely. There's no debate about that. His impact on the game. His impact on the game is enough reason to say he's a GOAT. But I really like, I added Lil Wayne on here because honestly, I mean, we know if you listen to Lil Wayne, you know the Carter series, all of those albums are great. You know, you can debate which one's the best. Most people say Carter 3 is the best.
Yeah.
But you know, the thing about Lil Wayne is this: the Carter series has always been great. A lot of his other albums have not reached up to that level. That's not to say they're bad. I think he has one album I can think of off the top of my head that's just bad, and that would have been.
No, I know what you're thinking of. Rebirth.
No, was it Rebirth? Yeah, Rebirth.
The one where he went kind of rock.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. It was definitely Rebirth. It's Rebirth, and then you could argue "I Am Not a Human Being" 2 is also kind of in that kind of realm, but point being, you know, we're talking about someone who's been in the game since 1999. You know, around that time. He probably, if you count all his projects, he probably has about the same amount of projects as somebody like Kanye, as somebody like Jay-Z, you know. And
well, that depends. Are you counting his mixtape? Because then he's getting up there in Gucci Mane numbers. True.
I think albums, he's about the same. I think he has about 10 albums, if I remember correctly, just off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But we're talking about someone who started out, he was a literal kid when he started rapping. So, you know, he started out, he actually had probably less of a, he didn't have as much of an immediate spike as like somebody like Kendrick had. Kendrick, you know, came up, I don't want to say he came up from nowhere because, you know, obviously Section 80 was there, but, you know, he went from Section 80 to Good Kid, Mad City, you know.
Yeah.
Lil Wayne, you know, he took steps and steps and steps, but it was big steps with each Carter album, and, you know, obviously the mixtapes and everything. And once he got to the Carter 3, he was on that level for a while, and like, just to give you guys some background, because again, I grew up listening to Lil Wayne. The Carter 3 came out, I think it was 07. 06, 07, around that time, and that was from that year 2006 to about 2008. He was on 100 singles, like he was featured in 100 different songs.
Yeah,
this is a man who
everybody wanted him.
Everybody wanted him. People still want him to this day because he's Lil Wayne.
Well, we just heard him on the John Batiste album last week, and the Dame album,
Yep, and you know, I just want to make it clear, like Lil Wayne, his growth as an artist has been impressive. He's gotten better and better with age. Again, some of his albums, especially some of the newer ones, may not be the best albums in general, but if you just listen to him as an artist and his lyricism, he's grown leaps and bounds, even from the Carter 3, which is crazy to say. You know, you say the Carter 3 is his best album, but like lyrically, he's gotten even better since then. So I just think he's a great example of this because, you know, in terms of the quality of music, if you want to say that, he hasn't really ever reached the quality of the Carter 3, the Carter 4, you know, that, or if you want to just put the Carters up there, he hasn't reached the quality of that necessarily, but he has never fallen too far below that either. He stayed around that, and, you know, I think that, you know, he's at the point in his career where we put it, goals change. He's at the point in his career where he's not trying, like none of these guys are trying to be on top anymore necessarily. I mean, you know, you could argue that the competitiveness in them is like, yeah, I'm the best rapper, but like, you know, they know who they are. legitimately, all four of these guys we have listed here could claim at some point in time in their career that they were the best rapper, and any of them could say that.
I think all of them were the best at some point. Yeah, I would say that.
And so you can't deny that. So since we're talking about some GOATs, this is a category we're about to go into. If you don't mind me taking the lead on this one, Logan.
Go for it, my man.
So this is a category where we have people that are GOAT candidates. Not necessarily, the four we just listed are GOATs. This next one is talent goes up, talent goes down. This has some GOAT candidates in it. This also has some artists that have had really, really high peaks. But again, very low lows. So we have four people on here. We have Eminem, Drake, Nicki Minaj, and a newer artist, Roddy Ricch. So first off, Roddy Ricch seems a little out of place in this because we have three potentially GOAT candidates on this list, and then Roddy Ricch. But I think he's actually the one I want to start with. The reason why we put him on here is because he's the perfect example of, and again, he's still growing his career. His career's still going. He still has a lot. All their careers are still going, I guess. But his career's still going. He still has a lot of potential to go further. But he started off so high. And his first album was amazing. Like, you would have thought on his first album, you would have thought after his first album he's about to take over the game. Honestly, like, you would have thought that Roddy Ricch is about to be the next guy. And then that second album came, and he lost so much of that steam. His second album just did not show the growth you would have expected out of somebody like that, especially someone who came across as like a conscious trap rapper. Not necessarily trap because he's from the West Coast. It's not necessarily trap, but like, the best way to describe it is someone who's, a little bit more street, but conscious with it, a little more introspective with it. But his second album just did not hit. And I'll say I enjoy some songs off of it, but the quality was significantly worse than the first album. Again, we're trying to keep positive on this podcast. We're not trying to knock anybody down. I'm not trying to knock Roddy Ricch down. I still actually believe he has a lot of potential. I've been hearing a lot of his new songs, and I like what I'm hearing, But I think he's a perfect example of someone who's kind of at that peak, and then right now he's kind of climbing out of the valley.
He can definitely get himself out of there.
Definitely.
But he can also fall off, and we can call him a one-hit wonder.
Exactly. Now, the other three, at this point, there's, like I said, they're GOAT candidates. I mean, honestly, you can call Eminem a GOAT. You can call Drake a GOAT. You can probably call Nicki a GOAT for female rappers, especially.
Yeah, she's definitely a female GOAT. Yeah, absolutely.
So, like, it's kind of tough to say this about them because, and I'm going to talk about those three together, not necessarily separate, because they're honestly kind of in the same boats, similar. I mean, different reasons, but similar that they all have been at the top of the game. They've all been up there with Kendrick, Jay-Z, Kanye, Lil Wayne at some point. They've all maybe not considered the best rapper, but have been up there and been considered one of the best.
Oh yeah, well, hey, there's no denying early 2000s Eminem, and there's no denying the stranglehold that Drake has had for the past decade.
And Nicki has been right behind Drake. Ironically, label mate, but
she is arguably the best feature artist ever.
Definitely. And I just want to say that, these are artists that have had really high highs, and, some of them have had really low lows. Some have arguably had lows that aren't as low as people would say. But, we could talk about how some of these, specifically Drake, in this regard, and I feel like this is something that I knew we would kind of talk about. I'm sure we're gonna do a video breaking this down more, but I'm just gonna put my opinion on it. I'm okay with Drake being in here because I agree that the quality of his music is not the same as it once was. It's fallen off honestly significantly in the sense of I don't think he's a bad artist at all, obviously. But his music just doesn't feel as like. A lot of his songs don't feel as intentional anymore. When he first came out, obviously he's hungry, fighting, trying to get to the top. Once he hit Nothing Was the Same, he pretty much was at the top. Honestly, Nothing Was the Same came out. That was probably one of my favorite albums by him. And then he followed up.
That was like his victory lap. Yep.
And then if you're reading this, it's too late. It's his victory lap for sure because he dropped that out of nowhere, and That's when the stranglehold Drake had on the game was really evident, because he dropped that out of nowhere. That album went insane, you know.
Yes.
And then then he had a collab with Future that I think a lot of people hated at the time. A lot of people, a lot of people liked it at the time. A lot of people hated it at the time. I think over time it's average, but it's fun.
Kind of in the middle of the two reactions. Yeah.
Exactly. But then he followed up with Views, which a lot of people felt were, again, mixed reviews, but for the most part, Views was considered a very good album that honestly to this day has only gotten better in my eyes.
Yeah.
Then you got More Life, which again is a playlist, but it's in the same vein as Views to me. I really enjoy it. I think it's gotten better with time. And then after that, that's when people are starting to say, it went down and down and down and down. Hey, I'm not going to argue that. Scorpion especially was definitely not an album that was... Scorpion was an album that he dropped knowing that he could drop that and that it would go insane. And it did do insane numbers. But, that's just an example of like Drake is a slightly different example of an artist who's fallen off, if you want to say, because he hasn't clearly he hasn't fallen off. He's still the biggest artist of the day.
Still there.
Right. He's still like the biggest rap artist today. But quality, and not even necessarily quality, but just the care, the drive isn't the same anymore. Is less hungry and more, I'm making music because I'm Drake. Nicki, it's hard to say what happened with her in terms of that. I don't think she's really fallen off too much. She just hasn't released a lot recently. And her last album just wasn't up to par, honestly, as her previous albums. But Nicki's more of a fallen off because she hasn't really done too much recently. She's done features, of course, and she's killed the features. She always kills features. But album music, she just hasn't released anything since the album came out 2018, I think.
2018,
2018.
And it very obviously wasn't up to par with her previous work.
Right. So, and of course Eminem has been up and down, let's be real. Honestly, he could technically, if he wasn't a GOAT, he could fit into our next category, honestly, because he's kind of been up and down throughout his career. Except he's had longer peaks.
Yeah.
And, his valleys have been less steep as other people's have, put it that way.
And if you want me to get a little bit more in depth about that, just because if you can't tell by looking at us, I listen to a lot more Eminem than Elijah does. Obviously, Eminem had one of the biggest peaks in hip-hop history, and then the drugs really tore him down once he got out of those first three major albums, took him down to Encore, which I think... Without the influence of the drugs, you can only hear it on a couple of the songs. You take those few songs out, that's still not up to par with the other three, but still a really good album. Then you come around to Relapse. I think Relapse is underrated, but it is definitely another dive, like back there on the similar level to what Encore was. Kind of climb back up with Recovery. Then you see Hell the Sequel with Royce da 5'9", MMLP2, kind of climb it back up. And again, that dive, that little valley leading back up to the mountain was kind of drug-induced. That had nothing to do with his talent. That was just, I'm on drugs, I'm taking 4 years off of drugs, now I have to relearn how to rap and get back to the top. So he worked his way back up, and then MMLP2, while not as good as his previous work, was still really good, in my opinion. It did have some negatives. Then he takes another long break. Then he comes back with Revival, which at this point is probably overhated, but is still really bad. So that is like, boom, way downhill. And then Kamikaze, kind of climbing back, kind of not. And Music to be Murdered By, I think, is probably the best example of the Eminem that we should be getting from this point on, where there's terrible songs, there's great songs. My opinion, if Eminem would drop an album where over Alchemist and Dre production, and he just had another artist featured on every single song. He had Royce da 5'9", he had, he's worked with Busta Rhymes and Q-Tip lately, artists like that. If he brought stuff like that in, brought it back in Kendrick Lamar, brought in some newer artists, I would love to hear an Eminem and Denzel Curry song together. Let's do something like that. If he could do something like that, like almost a Chronic level amount of features, I think he could create another classic album. But while he's making these hour and 20-minute long albums where he has some songs that are bar fests, and he has other songs where he's crying about a stepdad and he's talking about murdering a stepdad, we're not going to get back to that level of Eminem ever again if that's what we're going to be hearing.
And, I do want to say I have listened to Eminem. I've listened to a decent amount of Eminem. I haven't listened to all his albums, but Logan's right. I mean, honestly, you can just listen to the albums yourself and like not even really like break down the albums, but just listen to the albums and you can see the trend of like where the albums are really good, start falling off, get back to being good, then recently just falling off. But I just want to say that every artist on this side, to keep it on a positive note, every artist on this topic of the talent goes up, talent goes down. These are artists that have, excluding Roddy Ricch, the other three are artists that have been at the top before.
Yeah,
and we know they have what it takes. We know they have what it takes to be at the peak. So this is not a. Yeah. This is not a. Oh, they're. People will say this. This is not. We're not calling them mid. We're not calling them mid at all.
No.
Let's
be honest. Eminem's a GOAT. He's 50 years old now. Drake reached the top. Now he's got a kid. He's got other ambitions. Nicki, she's got a kid too. I mean,
she's got other ambitions. I mean, I didn't. This is not necessary. I mean, I think this is relevant actually. I mean, Drake and Nicki, specifically, they have a lot of business ventures outside of music.
Yes,
Drake is, he's the reason why he's one of the biggest artists is because he's just so well sought after for everything now. So like, it's honestly not surprising that like music. It's still his passion. You could tell he still likes music. Obviously, he still releases music, but you could tell that like for him, it's not. He doesn't need to be the heartbreak Drake as he called himself before. He doesn't need to be that level anymore. Nicki doesn't need to come out inspired. Right. Nicki doesn't need to come out and be as emotional on her albums and as just as deep as she was on her first few albums. She can, they just are what they are at this point, and that's fine.
Yep.
Roddy Ricch, he's still writing his
story.
Time will tell. He has a chance to change things, but yeah. So for this next one, I'm gonna let you take the lead, Logan.
Yes, sir. So all over the place. You could start at the top, go down, whatever. You could start at the bottom, climb your way up naturally, and then just fall the heck off.
Yep.
These are the people that climb, fall, kind of like Eminem's trajectory, except Eminem gets the excuse of having been on hardcore drugs. So the artist I want to talk about on here, we have listed Logic, Lil Baby, Lil Durk. The artist I want to talk about is Logic, just because I've paid a lot more attention to him. Lil Baby is someone that I got on kind of while he was at that peak, because I did not care for his earlier music. And then Lil Durk, I just know how much you enjoy Lil Durk. So Logic, the reason why I want to talk about him, this will be one of my claims to fame. I discovered Logic during the Young Sinatra tape era, like the first 3 tapes. I discovered him like almost a year before he dropped Under Pressure, which is what really blew him up, right? So you could tell throughout the course of the Young Sinatra tapes how he was growing, and then Under Pressure was like this celebration, like, oh my God, we're here, we made it, everyone knows who I am now. I'm getting features with Big Sean, I'm getting a lot of our, I think Gambino was on that album if I'm not mistaken. I mean, he had plenty of good features, it was a great track list, great beat selection, and then he follows that up with another really good album. And then after that, goes downhill a little bit, then goes really downhill once he gets into the Bobby Tarantino mixtape series, just for him to continue. I mean, he had a slight rise with Young Sinatra 4, just for him to drop, what was that album? What was his worst album, Elijah? I know you know what I'm talking about.
His worst album, I know. Hold on.
It's the one with the Eminem song on it, man.
Yes.
Confessions of a Dangerous Mind.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
That album had no order to it. And I mean, again, this is 1 year after he drops Young Sinatra 4, which was a step back in the right direction, Like he went Young Sinatra series, Under Pressure, The Incredible True Story, Everybody. little bit downhill with the Bobby Tarantino series, a little bit back uphill with Young Sinatra 4, and then Confessions of a Dangerous Mind just threw us all. And then the Son of a Gun comes back only 1 year later from that and drops No Pressure, which is almost on the same level as Under Pressure. And then he says he's retiring.
Mm-hmm. And then drops food.
And then he comes back 1 year later with Bobby Tarantino 3, which was awful. But then he comes back the next year with Vinyl Days, which everyone thought was going to be terrible. It was freaking an hour and 11 minutes and 30 songs. But that was one of the most inspired albums I've heard by an artist like him. And then he follows that up again this year with one of my favorite and most underrated albums, College Park. I mean, this man has been up, down, all over the place. He's gone in circles. Mm-hmm. But at least he's at the top right now again. Maybe not to the same selling capacity that he was. Because back in the day, you would have listed him as like, hey, he's a couple years behind Kendrick and Drake, but he's kind of rising with them parallel. He's not in that conversation anymore, but he is making really good music again.
Fair. Okay. I just want to say this about Logic. I really enjoyed his early stuff too. I think what really... So, I'm going to say this. I think Everybody was a solid album, but I think Everybody was the perfect example of why he started to get worse. Because he started focusing on a specific thing, and... You know, if you know, you know. I don't want to get into it right now because I feel like this is something we can talk about in a different episode. But just put it this way: if you know what I'm talking about with Everybody, you know, he started hyper focusing on that for no reason, and it. Yeah,
let's really not forget that he completely ruined a Royce da 5'9" song, one that was a remix of a song featuring Eminem. Royce replaces Eminem with Logic, ruins it.
Yep.
If you know, you know.
And. That era was just so. Yeah, I'm gonna say I have been a fan of Logic. Then he dropped those few albums, or he had that huge valley, and it was just like you know. And I'm not gonna lie, I was not very confident that he could come back and achieve back. But Young Sinatra 4 was definitely a huge step in the right direction. And then immediately followed by 3 big steps back with Confessions of a and then after that, No Pressure was like a jump forward. So it's like, as Logan said, he's been very herky jerky for like the last
a lot of hit or miss.
Honestly, since 2017.
Since 2015.
So,
yep.
Honestly, you can even say 2015.
He dropped The Incredible True Story, and then it was going downhill from there.
Yep. So now. I want to actually take some time to talk about these two artists, Lil Baby and Lil Durk. Specifically because if you know, obviously they dropped the album together, The Voice and the Hero, which was actually a really great album. One of the best collab albums I think that we've had in the last 10 years.
Recent history, definitely. Yeah.
I want to talk about them because they're kind of opposite with the same issue. Lil Baby, starting off, came out hot. He was building up. He's an Atlanta artist. He was building up some hype or whatever. And then once he really hit. Like, he hit the ground running. If you know Freestyle, that song blew him up. And then, he started hanging out with Young Thug, Gunna, all that stuff, blew up. He was at the top. Honestly, he was at the top of the game for a good, year. And he was really dropping good quality music as well. His album is My Turn, great album. Mm-hmm. That was a great album. He did a great job with that album. He delivered on that hype and showed what he could do. And then ever since then, it's just been, bro, it's just been just not good. I mean, the joke on hip hop Twitter is, and anytime Baby drops something new, it's mid. it's just mid.
Yep. That is, yep.
And it's become a meme to the point where, some of the stuff that I feel like people hated about him was definitely overhated. I'll say the song. Yep. People hate that song, Hey. Honestly, you play that on your car speakers. You got some good car speakers. You play it on your car speakers. That song goes hard. Not going to hold you. That song goes hard. But that album, not great. Not great at all. There's not really much else to say about that other than the album was just terrible. Yeah.
Which what you said, I think, says more about the problem with hip-hop Twitter than it does with Baby.
Yeah, of course. too quick to say mid for anything. But that's a whole different topic. Let's not get into that one.
You got to give artists time to grow, man. Got to give them the time.
I think so. Little Baby. My point with saying Little Baby is he grew, he reached the top, and he's hit the valley now. The thing is, he's almost in a way like Drake, just at a significantly less level because he's still very popular. Obviously, he still has a lot of spin, but I think people have noticed and accepted the fact that his quality is just not the same. And ever since that thing happened with Gunna and all that stuff happened, people have the joke on hip hop Twitter that Gunna made Baby, and the more I don't agree with that, obviously, but it's also hard to disagree with that when the more he releases his solo music and he has no Gunna, it's just not it's not the same. So, but I want to move on to Lil Durk here. So Lil Durk, same thing, except just not as extreme as Lil Baby. So Lil Durk has been out for a lot longer than Lil Baby. I remember listening to Lil Durk. He came out back in 20. The years might not be right, but I want to say 2013. I think is when he dropped his first album, or around that time is when he dropped his first album. So he's been in the game for a while. He's been very, very big for a while. He started off, growing steadily, and like Baby, he's kind of hit off. He became big, and I put him in this category. I don't think he's as extreme as Baby because his album, so I want to say his album, just to let you know, because I think he's shown pretty steady growth for most of his career up until the last few albums. So we'll start with The Voice and the Hero. I know it's a collab album, but I think that album for both Baby and Durk is a high point for both of their careers. Very high point. I think it's important to mention that. I think it's important to mention that.
One of the best albums of 2021.
So started that was a great album. We can even go back to The Voice. And I know Logan hasn't really listened to as many of these, so I'm gonna keep it.
Well, I'll say I listened to pretty much everything from him ever since 2017. I kind of started listening to him with Bloodas, T Grizzly, and then I really enjoyed Just Cause Y'all Waited.
Okay, cool. So then the albums I'm about to name, you know about that. Cool. So
I've at least heard them.
So pretty much from everything from Bloodas up until 7220, everything up to that, including The Voice and the Hero, has been just on an upward trajectory. Everything's been pretty much great. It's been getting better and better and better. And The Voice was a great album that he released right before The Voice of the Hero. And then The Voice of the Hero came out. Amazing. 7220, not as good as The Voice of the Hero, but still a pretty solid album. And then his last album, Almost Healed. We're gonna skip the other one because I think that's a collab album, The Loyal Bros, because it's only the family and Lil Durk. That's not. I don't want to put that in there because this is a separate category.
Yeah,
but Almost
pretty
Healed
much the
had
entire
so much.
back half of that project doesn't even have him on it.
Exactly. But Almost Healed, his most recent album, so much hype about it. Everybody's super excited about it. It just fell flat. It wasn't. It wasn't bad. It wasn't like trash album. I hate to say this, but if I was quoted, would say I could give it the mid category. It was a mid album. There's some good songs. There's some very.
At least it does have the most overplayed song of the year. I don't see anything taking that title.
That's true.
I hear All My Life everywhere I go, man.
It's literally played everywhere. It's a good song, but
just overplayed at this point.
He's kind of unlike Baby. Baby's been kind of in that valley for the last year, honestly. Ever since The Voice of the Hero came out, he's been kind of hitting that valley. Durk has less been hitting that valley. He's only starting to hit a downward slope with Almost Healed. I think that he's just not showing the growth that you were seeing before. Almost Healed just came out and it's just not hitting the same. It's not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's trash. I'm not saying I don't enjoy the music. I enjoy, honestly, all the artists we named here. I enjoyed still. Logic sometimes, but I just think that Baby and Lil Durk are very similar, except that Baby is more extreme with his up because I think Baby probably was a little bit more popular than Dirk, but he's also been falling off harder than Dirk, if you want to say. And Dirk has been maybe not as popular as Baby, but almost up there, and he hasn't fallen off as significantly. But it's just important to remember that artists are going to have growth some way or another. They're going to have positive growth. They're going to have negative growth. It just is what it is. The biggest thing that I want to wrap this up with is, when we're talking about growth, you really have to just look at the artist's whole catalog. You can't just look at one bad album and just say, this album was bad, they're not growing. Because if that was the case, then people like Lil Wayne, Kanye, even Jay-Z, they've all had one album that I'm sure you can point out that's just bad, just bad. But the most important thing is remember that, like, growth is not always linear. As you can tell, a lot of artists do not have linear growth, in fact. But you have to look at their body of work combined with what they're doing currently before you rate them and discredit them. Because even somebody like Lil Baby, who's fallen off hard, he still has that potential to get back to where he was. He's not mid as an artist. He's not done as an artist. He just needs to, I think he needs to find that spark and like recapture what made him popular. And I hope it's not by making the same type of music, but like finding a way to find that spark while also changing how he's delivering the music, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why we throw some of these newer artists in with some of these goats, because, man, you got to give these guys time to grow. Like, you wouldn't think an artist like Playboi Carti would continue to grow, but here he is dropping a whole lot of red, and we'll see what he follows it up with. Same thing with Lil Uzi Vert, man, just completely changing the type of music he makes. That doesn't always pay off for everybody. I use two examples where I believe it does pay off, but you never know what Lil Baby's going to do next. You never know what Dirk's going to do next, You never know what Roddy Ricch is going to do next. So don't just say they peaked and they're done. They could be, but give them time, man. Give them time. You never know.
Yeah, and, I just want to say, we love listening to music. So, and I hope you guys love listening to music too. Just, again, remember that, we talk about these things, but enjoy who you enjoy. Don't feel bad if we name one of your favorite artists and we're saying that he's kind of falling off, whatever. We're not saying that negatively. We're not saying that trying to discredit them. We're just saying the in general part. If you really love Lil Baby, which I still like Lil Baby. If you really love Lil Baby, continue to listen to his music. Please continue to listen to his music. You like Lil Durk, continue to listen to Lil Durk,
That's right.
But, I think at this point, I say, just listen to who you want to listen to. And, I want to say that I enjoyed this week, honestly. I really enjoyed doing the draft and talking about growth. I think this was a very fun episode.
I agree. And if I could just leave the people with one takeaway, remember, it's a lot easier to enjoy stuff and talk about that than to listen to the stuff that you hate and talk about that. All right? You ain't got to be negative. I know negative gets interactions, but positive brings out the enjoyment in life. All right? That's my biggest takeaway for y'all.
That's a great message to end on. I love that one.
Yes, sir. That being said, I think we're ready to wrap up. Elijah?
Yeah. Like I said, please comment, like, subscribe. If you're on YouTube watching this, definitely comment, like, subscribe. Apple Music, Spotify, do what you got to do to get the message out to your friends. If you really enjoy this, see if they'll enjoy it. If you enjoy it, they might enjoy it. And we are definitely loving doing this, and we want to continue to do this for you guys. Just remember that any suggestions you have, we will take into account, and we would love to do that, especially if we don't have a week of heavy releases. We're willing to do other types of content that will, it's interesting to you guys.
Yep. That being said, I appreciate y'all listening. And remember, we're going to try to have a poll probably on the Spotify, Apple, if I can figure out how to do it, and definitely on TikTok. Vote for my list because I had the best 5 albums.
Don't listen to him. You know who are the best.
Yeah. But we're going to wrap it up there, y'all. We're hitting over 90 minutes. If y'all made it to this point, we appreciate it, and we will see y'all next time.
Much.
Peace.
Peace out.